And hello everybody, welcome to Flight Past for another episode where we fly in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and we go and have a look some of these places that history has happened in. And today we will be looking at Operation Tonga. In part 7 we looked at the landings of the gliders of D Company 2nd Battalion Ox Bucks light infantry when they captured the bridges over the River Orne and the Caen Canal at Benouville and Ranville. So today we are in a Optica, and we're going to use this. It's nicely decked out in French colours. We're going to fly over to the bridges and we'll discuss the events that occurred on the day of D-Day itself. So let's get up in the air. I'm not even sure that this thing is a really lovely stable platform to use, so we'll get the gyroscope on. There we go. Let's reduce the thrust a little bit. We'll just see now if we can get our autopilot on. Okay. We've just taken off from it's the airport to the west of Caen, Caprica, I believe, and we're going to fly now over to the bridges. Whilst we're just moving over there, you can help out on the channel anytime you like. You can join the Discord. If you scan down to the Second World War, you'll find a D-Day, and here you'll see a timeline, and this is all the events that happened on D-Day, and you can click on one of these events and it will give you what happened at that time. So in part 7 we basically got to where we'd done the landings of the gliders and which was this event here, and you can flick through and check all those things out. So we're heading now over Caen. Caen got heavily bombed. Actually got bombed on D-Day. The northern part of the outskirts of Caen was bombed. As they the whole idea of the this is 6th Airborne operation was to control the eastern flank of the invasion beaches. They wanted to hold the bridges over the Orne and the river, the Caen Canal and the River Orne, which are these two strips of water coming up now. And they wanted to destroy the rivers on the Dives to prevent the Germans from counter-attacking from the east. Most of the area beyond the Benouville Ridge, which is that line of trees you can see in the middle distance. And let me just get my pointer out. This here is the Benouville Ridge. Most of the land over this side was flooded. And this is what the Germans tended to do. And the River Dives, which is in the far distance, they had about 5 bridges, and the Canadian Paratroop Regiment and I can't remember what was another one. Their job was to destroy those bridges, and it forces then the Germans, if they needed to bring in reinforcements, to come through Caen. Now, they bombed elements of Caen mainly on the northern side to disrupt any reinforcements coming up towards Sword Beach, which you can see up there on the top of the screen. We're flying over a place called Colombo's. This is a cement factory, and this was where the Halifax bombers that were towing the gliders were doing their bombing run to disguise the fact that they just dropped off the gliders. Okay, so this is you can see the river is actually on the left, and sorry, the river is on the right, and the canal is on the left as we're flying up. When we get to the bridge, then we'll do a quick recap of what immediately happened, and then we can discuss the other days, parts of the day. So, as we discussed yesterday, so we've got the 6th Airborne Division is basically taking over this area, and to create a bridgehead. Initially a defensive one, which Monty hoped that he could then make into an offensive one, and we will see that this area becomes a launch pad later on for Operation Goodwood. Okay, so this is the bridges we have in front of us. Below us is Benouville, and we've got Le Port in the centre of the screen here, we've got Pegasus Bridge and Horsa Bridge in the middle of the screen now. Let's just do a quick talk about the 6th Airborne Division. Basically, the 6th Airborne Division is divided into 2 brigades, and you have the 5th Parachute Brigade is under Brigadier Nigel Poet, and this is the brigade that the D Company of the 2nd Battalion of the Ox and Bucks Light Infantry is appointed to. So the Major Howard's D Company are the ones who take control here of the bridges, and the 5th Parachute Brigade is split into the 7th Parachute Battalion, and this is under a guy called Pine Coffin, a great name. His name was Richard Pine Coffin, and so he's in control of the 7th Battalion. Of the Parachute Regiment. Their drop zone was drop zone W, which is this drop zone here, which is between Benouville and Le Port below us, and Ouistreham up there on the coast, at the eastern end of Sword Beach. The 5th Parachute Regiment is also split, so it's the 7th Parachute Regiment, and then also the 12th and 13th Parachute Regiment. And their drop zone was here, which is drop zone N, and this is to the north and north east of Ranville, which is this village here. This church is in the centre, and you can actually see here the Commonwealth Cemetery. The drop zone, very open in this area, unlike on the Cottetown Peninsula, where there's a lot of bocage country, small fields, large hedges. Here is much more open, and it's got the benefit of being large, open. It has distinguishable features nearby, so you'll be able to see the church tower of Ranville. You can also see the smokestacks of the cement works, and you also have to the north east the Breville Ridge, which doesn't look much from the sky, but when you're down here you can see that it is actually a pretty significant feature of the landscape. And on this Breville Ridge is a water tower, which we can see here. So as a drop zone, you can't really get much better, because with these very distinctive features, you can quite easily orientate yourself. So this is where as I say, 12th and 13th Parachute Battalions will land. This is also where the Pathfinders will come in. Brigadier Nigel Poet will land very quickly after the gliders at the bridges in order to organise the drop zones. And a lot of this, their job is to secure these drop zones. There will be, and to remove any glider posts, or what they called Rommel's asparagus, because they have a glider landings plans for about, I think it's 3:45 in the morning, and this will be bringing in some heavier equipment, jeeps and 6-pounder guns, things like that. Whilst we're on the subject, 3rd Parachute Brigade was commanded by Brigadier James Hill, and that consisted of the 1st Canadian and the 9th Parachute Battalion, and also the 8th Parachute Battalion. Now, their drop zone, they had 2 drop zones, and one of them was designated Drop Zone V for Victor, and it was basically on the other side of the Breville Ridge. So when we look back, I can find this is the Breville Ridge, where we see the water tower. There's a chateau here, and this and a road down. This side over here is this is Varaville here, and this to the west of Varaville was the drop zone. So it was an obvious mission to control the Breville Ridge, because from that point of view, the Breville Ridge, if you control the Breville Ridge, you can see all the movement of the troops coming in off Sword Beach, and so your artillery observers will be able to bring down accurate artillery fire on everything that's going on around and over the other side of the River Orne. So 9th Parachute Battalion, we're definitely to be talking about these, not today, but in the next few episodes, and that they were the under Lieutenant Colonel Otway, were designated to destroy the Merville Battery, which is from this drop zone is to the north west. We can fly quickly over there. So they would move from that drop zone to the Merville Battery, which is this group of bunkers here. And 1st Canadian, they were designated to destroy the bridges, not only at Varaville, but also at a place called Rob Hom, which I believe is over here, and to destroy these bridges. Now these bridges were there were 5 of them along this river, and most of this area is flooded, by the way. So you take out the bridges, and then these causeways across them become significant. 8th Parachute Regiment Parachute Battalion. Their drop zone was south of Esquiville, the village of Esquiville, which is, I believe, one of these villages down here, quite a way south. I think it's this one here. So they were, their mission was to destroy the bridges at Burez and Truan. So as I say, this meant that up there is the part of Calais. So with the bridges down, any counter-attacks can't come through this area. It forces them at least to come all the way around into Caen before then pushing up to the landing beaches. And of course, if you can force them to have to move during the day, then they're then susceptible to the Allied Air Force. So the drop zones, the landings, the parachutes, they're going to be very susceptible during the night. If the Germans move out during the night, then they're not going to get the cover of the paratroopers aren't going to get the cover of Allied Air Force. So let's start talking about the area around Benouville and Ranville, and we'll try to keep a running time going as well. And actually, this might be a good point to actually to move on and go into part 9, so I can split this video up later. So if you come back in, we'll just take a break now, and in part 9 we'll start discussing what happened during the day surrounding these two villages here. So we'll see you in a moment. So welcome back, and welcome to part 9. Let me this is part 9, and let's just do a bit of admin here. And we're talking Operation Tonga. And so in this part, we're going to look at the villages that you see in front of us here. The one on the left is Benouville, and on the one on the right is Ranville. And right in the middle here, we've got the bridges over. This one here is known as, well, it's now known as Pegasus Bridge. This is the Caen Canal Bridge, and this one here is now known as Horsa, but this was the River Orne Bridge. So let's I'm going to go to my timeline here, and we can find the next episode. So, let's just recap what happened. We've got this white dot here in front of us is actually the position of where glider number 1 landed, and we can then just run through the events from that point. The Howard had broken up the assault on the bridge into a number of tasks, and once they got over the sort of the shock of the impact of the landing, he met up with Lieutenant Den Broveridge outside of the glider, and he then gives the platoons, the squads move up to him, and then he gives them the task in the order that they arrive. So Den Broveridge is given task number 1, and his job is to charge across the bridge and take the western side. So they landed at 16 minutes past midnight, and Den Broveridge runs up the small incline to the bridge, and he's the sentry on the bridge. They initially mistook the sound of the glider's landing, or the glider landing, as just a part of a bomber that's crashed. It must have been that common, the constant aircraft noise going overhead. So they don't think anything of it. But when Den Broveridge moves up with his squad, he is spotted by the German sentry, and he fires. One of them runs back, shouting "paratroopers," and another German sentry fires a very light flare. Den Broveridge shoots the guy with the flare with his Sten gun, and charges off across the bridge with privates Bill Gray and Dennis Edwards. They get a machine gun opens up on them from the west side, which they reply to, but the Germans basically scatter and run at this point. Corporal Bailey is he leads a platoon containing Wally Parr and Charlie Gardner, and he's given task number 2, which is basically to take out the pillbox. And the pillbox was on the eastern side edge of the bridge, just to the north of the road. At this point, they throw grenades, phosphorus grenades. I think one of them, Den Broveridge had already thrown a grenade towards it, but they then reply throwing grenades in through the slits of the pillbox and use a Bren gun. Gray and Packwood, and they then move on, and they continue. So Gray and pack with them on the western side. They moved down this edge of the canal here, down a slit trench, and take out clear those slit trenches, then take some prisoners. The other gliders are arriving at this point. Glider 3 lands hard, and we have discussed the orders of the gliders. Howard believes that one of them overtook the other one, or what caused one to have a harder landing. Glider 3 does land at an angle. It's partially submerged in the pond, which is here. Glider 3 is around about this area here, and a number of men are trapped in the glider. And Lance Corporal Fred Greenhall, he's knocked unconscious in the landing, and he is the one casualty of that of the landings. He drowns in the shallow water. Sandy Smith arrives, his platoon, and Howard sends him across the bridge. So at this point, Broveridge is moving, or has sending his squad over to the left, and Sandy Smith is moving over to the right. Den Broveridge is actually shot crossing the bridge, but it's not until after sort of first engagement's over that anyone notices that he's been hit. And they come back and find that he's been shot in the neck. They move him across to the Cafe Gonde, which is here in this building here. But it's obvious at this point that he's in a lot of trouble. So Smith has also been injured. He gets injured, I believe it's either in the actual crash or going across the bridge. He gets injured in his wrist. He carries on, but it does mean that it's likely that he won't be able to carry on for too long. So Howard has already lost 2 platoon leaders. And when he doesn't, what he also doesn't know right now, he's also lost his second command, missing. Okay. What else have we got? Let me just check my notes here. Just going to, so we remember from previous parts that Howard, his main concern was to defend the bridge from the west. He believes that the Horsa Bridge is going to be captured by his the other half of his company, but also behind him is where the drop zone will be for the 7th Battalion. So his main concern is looking this way to the west, and his orders tells him that he can expect a reply from the Germans down this road here, and possibly across country from this direction over there. So he sent the 1st platoon and 2nd platoon over, one on the left and one on the right, defending the approach. And he also pushes another platoon up to this junction. Now, I believe this, in 1944, this was a T-junction, and it wasn't a roundabout, it wasn't a crossroads. I believe, I'm not sure, but this is a modern extension, and this is the T-junction. So when we talk about the Germans arriving, I believe they're coming down this road here, and then down towards the bridge at this point here. Howard is the counterattack is going to be coming from the he's told the 736th Grenadier Regiment, and this is part of the 21st Panzer Division. Now, this is because it's not a tank. It's not the tanks. The tanks can't be moved without Hitler's permission, but elements of the support infantry, they can be moved, especially if it's because there's been a very a threat in proximity. Howard's told that he can expect at least one company of infantry and possibly 8 tanks or 2 guns mounted on lorries coming from the south and southwest. Going back to Horsa Bridge, we know that Captain Brian Prede's glider ended up right over there, 8 miles to the east. So gliders 5 and 6 managed to land here. Glider 5 landed in this where this circle is, and glider 6 lands within 100 yards of the bridge. There is some mortars used very quickly. And we've discussed the landings before and the reasons why all that happened. But Fox is the Lieutenant Fox is the guy in Glider 6, and his platoon destroyed the machine gun post with a mortar round, and the Germans on this bridge run off towards Ranville over here. So that bridge is captured really quickly, and by the time that Lieutenant Sweeney's platoon arrive, 10 minutes later, the bridge has already been captured. They managed to then radio Corporal Tappenden, who's at the Pegasus Bridge with Howard. He's set up his HQ already, just to the north on the eastern side of the bridge. And so Howard is told at this point as well that by the sappers that the bridge, although wired for destruction, they're lacking the explosives to carry that out. So at this point, at 12:26, which is it's only 10 minutes after the number 1 glider had landed, and about an hour and a half from the time they took off at RAF Tarrant Rushton. They have completed their mission, and the signal for the bridges being captured and intact is ham and jam. So Corporal Tappenden begins calling out ham and jam, and he's trying to contact Brigadier Nigel Poet. Now, Nigel Poet actually arrives pretty quickly after the gliders. Just trying to find the actual time. But briefly, I'll try. If anyone remembers or knows, then write it in the comments below. But let's. I'll come back to that when I've found it. But he arrives prior to the drop of the 5th Parachute Brigade, and that was at 10-1. So sometime between 20 past, I think it might be actually about 20 past, he comes in, and there's 6 Albemarle aircraft, and these are carrying the Pathfinders, and they're in to drop on this drop zone here, and I believe it's the Pathfinders. It's something like the 22nd Independent Parachute Company. Anyway, their task is to drop and place these Eureka beacons down on the drop zone. So Corporal Tappenden is sending out ham and jam, ham and bloody jam, getting frustrated because he can't contact the brigadier. But the brigadier has lost his radio man in the drop, so he's not getting the message, and I don't think the equipment works. A lot of you hear about these drops as well as that a lot of this equipment are very sensitive, and a lot of it doesn't survive the drop. So Howard begins to, as we said, to organize his defense. He leaves one platoon on Horsford Bridge to act as the join up, and as he said, he sends so Sweeney's ordered to stay with his platoon at the Horsford Bridge, and he orders Fox, Lieutenant Fox, to bring his platoon over to Pegasus Bridge. So we now have 4 platoons at Pegasus Bridge and one at Orsa. He moves, as we say, there's Denbrovich's platoon is number one is occupying this western side of this road here, and number two platoon is concentrating on the Le Port side of the bridge, and then he pushes the third platoon towards the junction, the T junction at the top. So he's got himself a defensive enclave around the end of the bridge. So Howard is expecting the 5th Parachute Brigade to begin dropping at 10 to 1. And he has a liaison officer, Lieutenant MacDonald, who has dropped with him, and he's sent basically to try to locate the 7th Battalion of that will be dropping on DZN, and this is the one that's the commanding officer is Lieutenant Colonel Geoffrey Pinecoffin. So 10 to 1. Let's update the time. Let's keep a... So at 10 to 1 on the 6th, Howard actually recalls, and I'm going to just quote what he says at this point. So he says, and I quote, "We had a first-class view of the division coming in. Searchlights were lighting up the chutes, and there was a bit of firing going on, and you could see tracer bullets going up into the air as they floated down to the ground. It really was the most awe-inspiring sight, and above all, it meant we weren't alone." Now, at this point, Howard is about here, so he would be looking this way towards the coast, northeast, and so he's seeing searchlights going up and tracer fire being fired. So, and at this point, from this position, he begins to blow his whistle, and he starts blowing the old ... dash on his whistle, which was the signal V for victory. And whilst we're on that signal V for victory, there was an incident on the Horsa Bridge where some this is when Sweeney's men are covering this side. They're obviously expecting men to be arriving their own from their own side, and they saw some men approaching up the riverbank from the south. So up the riverbank from the south. So they would have been seeing these men approaching from this direction. and they challenge these people with the expecting a V for victory kind of response. But when they were challenged, they shouted "Englanders" and began opening fire. And Sweeney's men replied. I believe one of Sweeney's men is injured, but the group that are approaching are killed. And it turns out later, it's discovered that it's a there were 4 people. 3 of them were German, and one was a Pathfinder from the 22nd Parachute Company, and he was killed. Around about this time as well, with the whistle blown, Nigel Poet has landed. He gets orientated by Den Broveridge's Bren gun shooting, and he arrives and meets up with Howard. Nigel Poet congratulates Howard with the successful capture of the bridges. And Howard now knows he's not on his own, and there are other people coming. Nigel Poet actually pushes on. He's obviously tried to organise this drop zone. He now moves across to the west to try to link up with 3rd Battalion that was dropping in the DZ up to the northwest. It is around this time as well that it is reported that engine noises could be heard, and it's believed to be the sound of they report tanks, armored vehicle possibly coming from Benouville. Okay, I think this will be a good place to have a bit of a break. So when we come back, we'll start discussing the first response of the Germans on the evening of the 6th of June. So we will leave it there, and I'll see you in the next part. So welcome back. Let's we are currently flying over the Pegasus bridges, Horsa and Pegasus, which you can see below us there, and we are currently talking at around about we got to about 1 o'clock now in the morning. And let's discuss the response of the Germans. So we left part 9. We're now into part 10, and we are Brigadier Nigel Poet has just arrived. 7th Battalion, Parachute Battalion, has parachuted into the drop zone that you can see below us. And it's at this time that there is the noise of engines coming from the south into Benouville. Before we talk about that, though, at the same time, we have reports that there's a car and a motorbike approaches the bridge, the Horsa Bridge, down this road. So this is Ranville, and basically the commander of the bridge, Major Hans Schmidt. He's the commander of the 736th Grenadier Regiment, and they're the ones tasked with the defense of the bridge. So he's been this evening taking some French lessons in the village of Ranville, and when he hears the drop zone going on, he races back. So he knows at this point that he's in trouble. He's not at his post. He hasn't got the explosives on the bridge, so that he knows that the bridges can't be blown. He didn't trust his men. He thought that, well, if it's going to be a parachute drop, I should have time to get back to the bridges and blow them up. So he realizes he's got to get back quickly. As I say, he was taking some French lessons from a very nice French girl, and she joins him in the car, and he drives down the road here towards Horsa Bridge. She gets scared, and he lets her out of the car, and then the car and the motorcycle speed down the road towards Horsa Bridge. And so he when he drives through, they get shot up, and he gets so Sweeney engages, the driver's killed, and the third and Major Hans Schmidt is shot in the legs. He is taken to Howard CP here, and by this time, and he gets treated by Captain Vaughan, who's the surgeon. Vaughan's was a guy who was in Glider 3, and he gets knocked out, and he's actually been knocked out for 30 minutes, so he's now woken. He's a bit disorientated, but he starts treating the major, the German Major Hans Schmidt, and of course Hans Schmidt is ranting and saying how the Allies aren't going to win, and and shoot me because I've failed my duty, and Captain Vaughan basically stabs him with morphine, and he turns a little bit happier after that. So as you say, at this time as well, we got the sound of engines coming from Benouville. At this point, the section of Howard's men have dug in along the west bank, south of the Gonde Canal, so they're kind of in this area here, and they can hear armoured vehicles approaching. Wally Parr, he runs back across the bridge and into the gliders to try to pick up a Piat anti-tank weapon. When he went, when he got back, he tried to load it, and he found that it had been dented and damaged in the crash and was unusable. There was one Piat that was working, and it was in Fox's platoon. The armoured vehicle, Fox's platoon was guarding this T-junction. I was probably the direction of the armoured vehicle was from this road here. People talk about what it was, but whether it was an actual Mark IV tank or whatever. But it was probably almost certainly a half-track with a 37mm gun on it. And that's, I think that was according to Saul David in his book Sky Warriors. The Piat is in the hands of Sergeant Charles Wagger Thornton, and they describe that he is lying beside the road across from the cafe garden. So, lying across the road, or beside the road across from the cafe garden. So, if this is the cafe, well, are we talking here? Probably, maybe. So we've got an armoured vehicle then coming down this road from the left and turning into this road. So Wagger Thornton, he's also the guy who used the mortar on the machine gun on the Horsa Bridge. So he's got these Piat things have to be. He's got one shot. The range on a Piat is you've got to be pretty close, 50 yards max. Unlikely to get a chance to reload without a response. The armoured vehicle was being followed by infantry behind, and there's a second vehicle behind that. So he needed to make sure he hit. It's reported he waited until the vehicle was about 30 yards away, and then he fires, and he hits this armoured vehicle, which is probably a half-track. And this thing explodes. Howard reports that it's likely that the half-track was carrying ammunition. So this thing starts cooking and blowing up. The commander of the 1st Company Panzerjäger Battalion 716. This is where the armoured vehicle belongs to. He's killed, and then his subordinates immediately back out. Von Luck, the German commander of 21st Panzer, he believes this is one of the most important events on D-Day, because the Germans come back up this road. The other vehicle reverses. They return probably up this road, and they are reporting back. Probably misreporting the strength that's at the bridge. They believe they've also got an anti-tank gun, a 6-pounder. So they've obviously they put the willies up, the Germans, and the Germans are going to wait for reinforcements. So this is buying the 7th Parachute Battalion now time. Round about this time, Howard hears from Doc Vaughan that Den Brovridge has died. This is Den Brovridge. So he becomes the first casualty of D-Day from enemy action on the ground. It's quite a sad story because his wife was pregnant at the time. So Howard knows that it was only it won't take long for the Germans to reorganize. So he needs Pine Coffin's men here as soon as possible. Pine Coffin says that the drop was difficult. There's quite a lot of dispersion because the moon was covered at the time of the drop. He actually also injures his ankle. He starts to gather. So 7th Battalion is landing here. There is a rendezvous point that he's created, or they had planned. And I'm not sure where that was. But so he's begins collecting stragglers. And he is finding it hard to orientate himself, but then a flare is dropped from an aircraft, and he says that the church spire at Ranville can be seen. He and he's reporting that this is around about 1:45 that he starts getting significant numbers at his rendezvous point. He decides at this point he's going to leave and head for the bridge, and he leaves Major Steel Baum, B-A-U-M-E, at the rendezvous point to round up stragglers. C Company was of the 7th Battalion Parachute Regiment. He's is commanded by Major Bartlett, and he's sent ahead at speed to link up with Howard at the bridge. Bartlett is dropped about 3 miles away, and it turns out that Major Nigel Taylor, then in A Company, then pushes on. And these, so they're pushing in to the bridges. They're sending 2 companies as quick as possible. These companies, by the way, are also, and they're carrying dinghies. In fact, Richard Todd, who dropped on the far drop zone and had a dinghy strapped to his leg, because they were fully expecting these bridges to be blown. The gliders that landed also had dinghies in them, so they were very glad to be able to ditch those. So Howard records that he meets up with Major Taylor at 2:50. And that Lieutenant Colonel Pinecoffin arrives 10 minutes later at 3 o'clock in the morning. So at this point, Lieutenant Colonel Pinecoffin takes control and relieves Howard of command of his of the bridge's defense. He Pinecoffin orders Howard's men to be brought back over the Canal Bridge and act as a reserve with responsibility for the river bridge and the area between crossings. So he sends then A Company of the 7th Parachute Battalion in across the bridge to the south side towards Benouville, and he sends B Company, which is he says B Company of the 7th Parachute. He sends them to Le Port, which is to the north of the bridge in this direction here. He tells Bartlett when he arrives that he's going to be in support and reserve on the west end of the Canal Bridge. So C Company will hold the bridge. And we have A and B moving out to each of the villages. Lieutenant Richard Todd, I think he gets mentioned a lot because he's the assistant adjutant to the 7th Battalion, and he will play John Howard in the film The Longest Day in 1962, and he also plays Guy Gibson in the Dam Busters in 1955. He jumped into this drop zone over here, and he's ordered to set up a HQ, a battalion HQ, below the hamlet of Le Port. So it's between the cafe and the church. So it's in this area, I believe, here. This is the church at Le Port. So that is the initial German response. So we mentioned Major Hans von Luck. He's the commander of the Panzer Grenadier Regiment of 125 of the 21st Panzer Division, and he is based in the village of Benouville, which is 12 miles to the south. See if I can find that. So we're let's see if I can find it. It's on. So this is Caen. And so I think it's this village here. So he's down in this. Actually, it might be this one further down. Yeah, it's one of these villages here. It's difficult to see. I think it's this one here. So this is where von Luck is based, and you can see how far it is there from the coast. So he hears at 12 p.m. he hears the aircraft, and he's experienced to know as well that he can hear aircraft that are flying low, below 800 feet, and so he's aware that this means that there's either a supply drop to the resistance, or there is going to be parachute drops. So he can hear these planes coming in over, and so he receives a call at 12 o'clock as well from his adjutant troopers and gliders had been spotted in their section, and so he immediately orders the bulk of his regiment to be put on alert and informed the divisional headquarters at Saint-Pierre-sur-Dive, which is 8 miles further southeast of Benouville and Ranville. He orders his 2nd Battalion stationed to the north and nearest the coast to go into action where necessary and bring any prisoners to him. He's informed that the 5th Company of the 2nd Battalion had already a counter-attack towards Orne, which is this village. I believe it's this one. This one here. And he's also told that a British medical officer has already been captured. Luck's adjutant at this time was Lieutenant Liebskind. He phones Divisional HQ, but he's informed that General Major Fuchstinger and his staff were in Paris. So he leaves the message saying he's requesting clearance to launch a concentrated night attack as soon as the divisional commander returns. By this time, Luck has got some captured parachutists, and he knows from them that the target of the landings were the bridges at Benouville and Ranville. So he knows that this is the time when parachute drops happen, that you need to respond now. His report was being passed up the chain of command, but no order could come, and he couldn't move his tanks because the basically at Corps and Army level, Group B, there was no joined up thinking about what whether this was the actual target of the invasion, and if it might have been just a diversionary act. Rommel, we've discussed this before, but Rommel had gone off to Berlin, took advantage of the bad weather to take his wife a 50th birthday present, so he wasn't back. So the 21st Panzer Division had 2 Panzer Grenadier regiments, and one of them on each side of the Orne, with the 192nd Regiment, Grenadier Regiment, on the west side, and von Lux on the 125 Regiment on the east. And the main tank section was further to the south. The people talk about, they didn't get the orders to move, but von Lux had got an order, a general order from Hitler. his division had got the order. They gave a general instruction that in an event of an airborne landing, all formations under attack were to immediately counterattack from their existing positions in order to destroy the enemy. But the problem was that this order got passed to division, but hadn't gone any lower. So major, the regimental layer, they hadn't received this instruction, so they were still waiting for orders to move. The German organization is super complicated, and when you're looking at who controls what and what parts of what battlefield, and none of them had a joined up thinking. Some, like Rommel, wanted to fight nearest to the beaches, some wanted to do it in layers. Hitler wouldn't commit stuff. There was confusion all over the place. General Oberst Dolman, who was the commander of the 7th Army, he was also away. He had been to he's gone to Rennes. Futzinger's gone to Rennes as well, chief of staff. So his Futzinger, his chief of staff, was in Paris to attend personal affairs, and the Dolman was in Rennes for a map exercise. So there was a complete failure of senior command in the German military about who was where. There was no talking between corps and armies about who was supposed to be where. And just because the weather was bad on the 5th, they all decided to go off and put their head in the sand. So complete failure of leadership. And this is what Major von Luck is obviously experiencing, because he knows what needs to happen, but he's frustrated because he's not getting the orders to move. He kind of does. He can do what he can. He moves his regiment into a defensive sort of front. He gets them all alert. He keeps on pressing the divisional headquarters, but nobody wants to take responsibility, and nobody will wake up Hitler. The Allied counter intelligence, had pushed the narrative of the part of Calais as the main landing. Discoveries of these dummy parachutists, these dolls, basically, have been discovered south of Carentan, and also to the east of the River Dives and to the southwest of Caen. And so they're getting information saying, "Oh, there's a parachute drop here," but then they're being told that it's a dummy. They don't really know what's going on. And in the nature itself of Allied parachute drops, it is confusion anyway. The misdropping of parachute troopers adds to the general confusion. So on the eastern side, then, so the Van Lux Panzer Grenadier 192 2nd Battalion, supported, reinforced by a battery of artillery and remnants of the 1st Company of the Panzerjäger Battalion of the 176. They're told to move out towards the bridges at Benouville and Ranville. So, the western side of the canal, and this is spearheaded by the 8th Company of the 2nd Battalion of the Panzergrenadier 192, and this is commanded by Oberlieutenant Bratz, and their base was in Caen. Let me just find where Caen is. Okay, so let's Caen is to the north west of Caen. There we go. This is Caen. It's quite a long way out, isn't it? They basically move towards the bridges from this direction. So Bratz's men get to the southern end of Benouville at about 4 a.m. and they're facing a depleted A Company of Major Taylor. They push into Benouville, and they push back A Company up this road, and 2 of their aid posts are exposed, and this is where some controversy occurs. The 2 aid posts, there's they're from the 225th Parachute Field Ambulance. 2 aid posts, number 32 and number 34. They somewhere in this area here, then they push up. One of them is designed, one of the aid stations is for serious casualties, and that's the number 34. The Panzergrenadiers of Bratz's 2nd Battalion, 8th Company, don't find them because they're moved upstairs away. They continue, and they come across this aid station number 32, and this is manned by the Padre, George Parry, known as Pissy Parry. This is where it's believed that the injured men in this ambulance aid post are bayoneted, or begin to be bayoneted by the Germans, and Parry steps in to try to intervene and is killed. So, and that was an account from it's a book called Parry, the Parachuting Padre. So we now move on to there's 2 reports at this time. One is from Richard Todd, He last time we spoke about him, he was here in this area. He describes this time as a classic airborne situation, where there was a very confused front line, and the battalion had evolved into 4 pockets of resistance. And presumably what he's talking about is this area here, this area here, at least being 2 of them. Right, so I think we shall call this the end of this part. At the end of part 10. And when we come back in part 11, we'll discuss the time from around about 5 o'clock as the landings on Sword Beach begin. So we'll see you in part 11. Welcome then back, everybody, to part 11 of this discussion on Operation Tonga. And in this part, we're going to discuss what happened around the Pegasus and Horsa bridges from around about 5 o'clock in the morning on the 6th of June 1944. Now at 5 o'clock, it's just before dawn, and this is when people around the bridge can hear Allied bombers arriving and bombing the beach landing defences at Sword. And so we're talking towards Sword here, and Richard Todd, Lieutenant Richard Todd, the adjutant of the 7th Battalion Parachute Regiment, says he gets a grandstand view from here towards that bombing. At this point, A Company has been pushed back on the south side here. This is Gondry Cafe. This is Benouville. A Company was depleted in the first place because of dispersion on the drop zone. But according to some record, David Saul's book, Saul David's book, they're down to fewer than 20 men, with all officers either wounded or killed. It's at this point that Private Michael McGee, he perceives a Panther is going to overrun his position. And presumably when we talk about Panther, we're talking about he's coming down this road here. He perceives it, that something needs to be done, and he uses his Bren gun to fire at the what he says is a Panther tank. But this gives the opportunity for his friends to attach a gammon bomb to the armored vehicle, which is I think it's kind of like a gammon bomb's a bit like a sticky bomb. Let me just check. It was yeah, it's a sticky bomb. It's got an elasticized sort of bag of material, a metal cap. And it uses sort of plastic explosives, but you can change the sort of charge inside it. So you'd fill this sort of bag with explosives, and then you could take off the cap, which would give a linen tape. It's kind of a fuse thing. Anyway, yes, Private McGee fires his brain at the armored vehicle. He, in the process of doing this, gets wounded, and he would die later that day and receive a Distinguished Conduct Medal posthumously. His citation was that McGee had complete disregard for his personal safety, was largely responsible for the successful and gallant action fought by his company. This brought Bratz's advance to a standstill, and the company, the 8th Company, then moves back, and he moves into what is described as parkland to the south of the village. And when we talk about parkland south of the village, then I think we must be talking this area here, around this tower and the chateau. And so he has pulled back. He's going to wait for reinforcements, and in the meantime, he's going to use his mortars and self-propelled gun to fire from this position towards Pegasus Bridge, which is the bridge over the canal, which is here. And he's going to do this whilst he waits for the reinforcements from Panzer Regiment 72. Sorry, 22. Those they were actually stationed to the south at Falaise, near Falaise, to the north of Falaise, and they actually didn't get orders to move until 8 o'clock in the morning. So this guy, he's going to have a bit of a wait here. And remember, now it's getting light, so any tank movements the Germans make at this point is going to be during daylight, and it's going to be susceptible to what's known as Yabo attack. They call it Yabo. It's German term, just basically for the Air Force attack on the ground. More and more paratroopers are arriving, from the drop zone as they come in. Pinecoffin is building up his defences in this area here. And he moves... he's expecting a counterattack from the west and the southwest. He moves Major Roger Neal's B Company, occupying the south half of Le Port and the woods to the north of the road junction. And this is, he wants to maintain this strip of land here on the west side of the canal. He needs to maintain a passage along here, basically towards Sword Beach. This is where Lord Lovett's commandos are expected to arrive. They actually come from this direction, this village here. So he's trying to make sure that there's a pathway through. At the moment, he hasn't got control of this village, and there are snipers. So he's got B Company up here in Le Port. He's got A Company down to the south, and C Company is in reserve still. He also has, so he can send his reserve in to support A Company or B Company whenever he likes. And he's also got Howard's men who are basically in this area in the middle here, acting as reserve. And we get at this point there's reports of French refugees trying to cross the bridges. Doesn't mention from which direction. Estimates. So yeah, it doesn't mention which direction, but we assume probably crossing west to east, away from the firing. Just in terms of actual numbers, just to keep everyone just up to speed, it's estimated at this moment that Lieutenant Colonel Pinecoffin has around 200 men at this point, and we're talking from a battalion strength, which is probably more like 800. And he could also call upon the 70 men of Major John Howard's D Company, so he's got about 270 men at this point. At this point as well, which we're talking about 5 o'clock in the morning, he believes that they've experienced 8 separate attacks from the German troops from the south. This is the first mention as well at this time of snipers. The light is dawn is coming up, and there is reports of sniper fire coming from this chateau here to the south. So they're they talk about sniper fire from the upper floors of the chateau, so probably a windows in this sort of area here, this will be the view that a sniper has towards the bridge. So this is the sort of range. So anyone now crossing the bridge are likely to be targeted. This is from the south. On the north side, there's reports of sniper fire coming from the church tower at Le Port. So again, looking this way and receiving sniper fire towards the bridge in that direction. So at this time as well, we've got so we have reports. I think what time are we talking now? We're talking maybe so we're pushing on in time. We're getting to about midday. And we start hearing the first reports that bagpipes can be heard. So Lord Lovat's first special brigade landed at Sword Beach on the eastern side of it. So this is Sword Beach. I'm not sure the far end here is used so much because it's very close to the port and the defense is there. But in this sort of area here, the commandos come in, they push inland, and they come in via this village here. So the bagpipes are playing, and what's happened now is that Pinecoffin realizes that he can hear the bagpipes occurring, but he doesn't signal back to them, because between where he is here and where the commandos are, the village of Le Port is still occupied by Germans. So he doesn't want to signal there everything's okay, come in. He wants them to make sure that they're still very aware that there's still danger ahead of them. The first Special Service Commando Brigade, they're the vanguard, I suppose. The Lord Lovat's commandos. He was the 25th chief of the clan Fraser. He's a veteran of 2 commander raids. One was Norway in March 1941, and the other was Dieppe in August 1942. And so his task on D-Day was to reach the bridge. They landed, I believe, around about 8:30 in the morning, and they're tasked with reaching here in about 3.5 hours. It's about 6.5 mile distance. So the vanguard is led by number 6 commando and Lieutenant Colonel Derek Mills Roberts. And because of they land, as I say, at about 8:40 a.m., but they've experienced German opposition. But their commanders, they meet resistance on the way, but they push on. They leave a lot of German resistance behind them. They just keep pushing inland, especially the vanguard. And they approach from the village, which I was just mentioned, is Saint-Auban d'Arquenay, which is this village up here. So they've approached from the beach, probably along one of these roads here, and then they're now coming down into Le Port. They number 6 commander eventually make their way through Le Port, and they get to the bridge at 2 o'clock. So you're maybe a few hours late. Lovett shakes hands with Howard. Howard is believed to have said about bloody time. And then he apologizes for the mortaring that's coming from the chateau, the Benouville. And he says the bastards have got the range, but it happens to be a maternity hospital, so he's got strict orders not to disturb the inmates. Wally Parr had actually tried to return fire to the chateau to suppress the snipers, but he's ordered to cease fire. Okay, so Lovett, he's gonna push onto the river bridge with number 6, 3, and 45 Royal Marine Commandos, and he meets up with Brigadier Poet. This is in between the bridges. This is where the commander of 45 Commando is. He's picked off by a sniper. Poet reports to Lovett, telling Lovett that they're being attacked from the south, and that most of the 3rd Parachute Brigade have been blown miles off course, and they're still forming up. Okay, so this is 2 o'clock. Now this is when another incident occurs, and this is when I'm not quite sure what time it is that this happens, but the gunboat, or a gunboat, comes down the canal. So this is the port of Ouistreham, and the commandos and the 3 French commandos have attacked the port. They've come off the beach and attacking the port from this side, back towards it here. And these two gunboats basically tried to escape back down the canal. So they come down this all the way down to here. You get to here, and the trenches on the left here, they fire a Piat. They hit the wheelhouse of the first gunboat, which then crashes into the bank here, and the Germans on board surrender, and the second one turns around and skedaddles back up. the canal. Later in the day, another canal, a gunboat, approaches from the south, and this is where Wally Parr uses the German 50mm anti-tank gun, which is located here, to fire at the approaching gunboat. And I believe this is the same gun that Wally Parr was trying to fire at the chateau. He fires at the approaching gunboat, and that isn't destroyed, but it turns around and goes back. And it's just at this point that John Howard says that the enemy attacks start to wane. There is believed to be a German artillery observer on this water tower here, and I think Wally Parr decides to take a few pot shots at that, because he was observing the mortar fire and self-propelled guns in the parkland towards the bridge. We get so in the afternoon it quietens down. Early evening, when we get to about 9 o'clock, we get reports of gliders beginning to arrive around Ranville, and this is the 6th Air Landing Brigade bringing in elements of the 2nd Ox and Bucks as well. They're bringing in heavy equipment, jeeps, lorries, anti-tank guns, and stores. At 9:15, Pine Coffin meets up with the 2nd Warwickshires, and the 7th Parachute Battalion is then officially relieved. And it's at this point that the 7th Parachute Battalion begin to withdraw and march across the bridge, heading towards Ranville. And this is when a crudely painted sign is fastened to the bridge that reads Pegasus Bridge. And of course the Pegasus comes from their logo, the 6th Airborne Division's logo, which was designed by Daphne du Maurier, who was the wife of Boyd Browning, the commander. So they're basically saying to the 2nd Warwickshires, this is our bridge, we captured it, and so we'll name it. And eventually, at 1 o'clock in the morning, on the 7th of June, Lieutenant Colonel Pine Coffin crosses over the bridge. So Howard's men have, in the course of the day, he's lost 5 officers, 1 killed, 2 wounded, and 2 missing, and 15 men, 1 killed. He's missing Lieutenant Hooper's platoon and his second-in-command, Brian Pride, which we talked about in previous parts. And so of his 4 platoon leaders, he only has Lieutenant Sweeney left. 2 of the platoon's sergeants are injured, and 2 of his platoons are now commanded by corporals. So Howard's men move back across, and they over the course of the early hours of the 7th, he reports to Major Mark Darrell Brown in Ranville Battalion headquarters. And so he actually almost, I believe, almost bumps into a German armor in the village of Huru. Here we go. Huruvillette. When he gets to his, when he reports to the major at the battalion headquarters, this is when Captain Prede and Lieutenant Hooper join up with him. So they've managed to spend D-Day basically tabbing it back from over here on this sort of flooded area. They've taken out a bridge and they move back. What happens later? Well, Darrell Brown, as we just heard, Major, he's ordered to occupy and hold the village of Esquiville. Difficult to, I believe it's this village here. Which is 2 miles to the southeast of Ranville. But he discovers, this is on the 7th of June, he discovers that there's German 21st Panzer elements in this area. Howard in this area is shot through the helmet. The bullet grazes his head. But he gets blood loss and concussion, and so he has to pass command of D Company to Prede, and the company then retires back to Huruvillette, which is the next village up, which is this one here. So Howard and Pinecoffin receive DSOs for this action, and Lieutenant Smith and Sweeney receive military crosses. Lieutenant Poole receives a military cross for his defence of the western bridgehead of the Canal, and Sergeant Thornton, for his Piat shot, receives the military medal. 8 of the glider pilots, including Warwick and Ainsworth, received the Distinguished Flying Cross. So this concludes the story of Operation Tonga on D-Day. The significance of it is this concludes this part of the Operation Tonga. I've got one more part to talk about, which is the Merville Battery, as I said. But whilst we're here, just to fill in what happens, this ridge here, which is the Breville Ridge, becomes exceedingly important. The bridges on the River Deves are knocked out probably for a few days, but it means that the Germans know and the British know that this ridge is exceedingly important, because from this ridge you get artillery control of the battlefield below. You get to spot everything that's going on in this area, and so it becomes hugely significant. And even though and this is what Montgomery, this area here, would deem his hinge to his door. If you ever see his plans right back at St. Paul's School in London, when he first gave it, he did predict that he wanted Caen part of that, but that wasn't very possible on D-Day. But this area here would be the hinge of the door which the Americans, the Bradleys and the Pattons, would knock down further to the west and then pivot round. It had to be defended. This area had to be secure, because the German major panzer divisions are up at the Pas de Calais, coming this way. If the Germans had got across the bridges on D-Day, then the panzers could have been on Sword Beach. And holding back the Germans from being able to disrupt the landings provides a safe, a good buffer zone. The Allies would eventually bring up some Bailey bridges and create London Bridge 1 and 2. And this area, which was the landing zone here to the south, would eventually become the springboard for Operation Goodwood. In fact, I think I would hazard a guess that these marks here are bomb marks, where the Air Force had dropped to create a path for the tanks. But this is the basically the push later month, July, for Operation Goodwood, as the Allies continue to build up their forces on the beaches here. So let's leave this here. We'll say thanks to Major John Howard for his heroics, and the 7th Parachute Battalion and 6th Airborne. We're going to, in the next stream, we're going to be looking at this area here, Melville Battery, what its significance was, and its dangers to the fleet, and the absolute heroics of 9th Parachute Battalion on D-Day, which in some respects is an even more remarkable story. But we shall leave it there then for today. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next stream whenever. See you later.